Thank you for joining us. And you will have noticed that we are going to be recording today's webinar. And so please, for those that want to look at this later or aren't able to join us today, we will be making this available. So thank you again for joining us. And before we begin, now I just need to get to my presentation. I just want to do our land acknowledgement. And so before we begin this important conversation today, it is essential to ground it in the acknowledgement that from wherever we are joining this meeting today, for those of us who are non-Indigenous, we are settlers and we are guests on this land. And so the city in which I stand today, in Hamilton, is situated upon the ancestral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee Confederacy land as determined by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. It is also an area with long-standing relationships with the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the Six Nations of Grand River. Almost all of us are somewhere on Turtle Island today. And so reflect on where you are today and the traditional name of the territory in which you are seated. We are grateful to the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island who have cared for these lands since time immemorial. We hold our hands up to their amazing resistance, resilience, and strength in the face of ongoing dispossession and colonial violence. To acknowledge these lands is to take one step in demonstrating our commitment to beginning the process of dismantling the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism and participating in truth and reconciliation. May we bring that same commitment and spirit of truth seeking and reconciliation to our conversation today. And so just a little bit about the organization that is presenting today. The Social Planning Research Council of Hamilton is an independent nonprofit and community-based research organization and promotes equity, informs policy and planning decisions, and increases community engagement to improve social conditions. And we accomplish this through research, as you will be hearing about today, and program evaluation, policy analysis, community partnerships, and program delivery. And as we go through the presentation today, I won't be able to see the chat as I'm looking at my screen in terms of doing the presentations, but my colleagues will be looking at the chat. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free. I think we're a small enough group today that if you want to ask a question about one of the slides or some of the information, we can do that if it's specific to that graphic or slide. But if you have sort of overarching questions or comments, please leave those to the end, as we will provide some time to have a discussion about this report. So looking at poverty, what is poverty and how do we measure that? And poverty data is complex. Quantifying the impact of poverty is challenging, and really we can't do it just with numbers alone. And there's no poverty measure that really can summarize the ways that poverty deprives people of necessities, subjects them perhaps to dehumanizing experiences, and marginalizes them from everyday life activities in our communities. And in Canada, we've measured poverty or low income through 3 different methods that Statistics Canada has used. And so some of them, that we have 2 relative measures. One of them, the low income cutoff, or LICO, which has been used for many years. And that's just an income level below which a family would devote a larger share of its income on the necessities of food, shelter, and clothing than the average family. The challenge with this particular measure is that it hasn't been rebased since 1992. The low income measure is another relative measure, and it's defined as 50% of the median family income and is adjusted for family size. And this is often used, especially as a measure that we can use to compare our country with other countries around the world. It's a measure that is very similar to what is used in other countries, and so this is a measure that is often used when we are doing those international comparisons. And the measure that, an absolute measure that has now become the official poverty line in Canada since 2018 is the market basket measure. And this is a measure that measures a family's disposable income to buy a basket of goods, which includes food, clothing, shelter, transportation, and other basic goods. And the MBM, market basket measure, thresholds varies by family size, community size, and location. And there's about 52, 53 different regions across the country that whereby there are specific market basket measures. And we are fortunate that in Hamilton, we have one that is specific to the Hamilton region. And the challenge with the market basket measure is that it's been often criticized for underestimating the cost of some of these items, such as housing. But it is what we are going to be presenting today. And so this graphic here just looks at some income thresholds around social assistance, poverty, different poverty low income lines, different wages, including living wage and minimum wage, and average incomes. And as you can see, for those in our community that are living on or have on social assistance, their incomes are quite low, even compared against any of the poverty measures that one might use in Canada. And you can see the market basket measure that's used with the census data in this report is that bolded there in the middle of those poverty measures for one person. And you can see that in Hamilton, it's 26,712 for one person household is the threshold. And of course, when we look at incomes of individuals, when we look at minimum wage, living wage, and our average incomes from the census data, we can see that even those are far below what somebody would need to live in our community. So this graphic is just an overview of the different groups that we are going to be looking at. You can see that according to and this is based on data from the 2021 census from Statistics Canada. Income data would be from 2020. So it's the question asked in the census is around income in the past full calendar year prior to the census being taken. And so you can see that according to the market basket measure, poverty rates in Hamilton overall, 7.7% of the population is in poverty. And you can see the groups that we are looking at today: singles without children, recent immigrants, single parent families, youth, racialized children, and seniors. Even though seniors falls below, it's a group that often we look at, and we will look at it in some different kind of detail when we get to that graphic. But this gives us that overview that we're looking for. And so I'm going to be going over some of the groups that we looked at. And so the first one is recent immigrants. And so this set of graphics looks at the number of immigrants and the poverty rate among immigrants by period of immigration in Hamilton. In Hamilton, we had about just over 20,000 immigrants that arrived between 2016 and 2021, which would be those that would be described as recent immigrants. And you can see that at the bottom of this chart. And it shows, as I said, it shows the varying impacts that it has as immigrants settle into our community. And we also know that during this time period that this information was collected, that we had income supports due to COVID and benefits that boosted some of the incomes of individuals and families, which would have lowered poverty rates. And so we also know that the recent immigrant population increased by 53% during the period from 2011 to 2015. And so that you see those at that group at the bottom of this chart. And their 2020 median after-tax income was $31,600. for all recent immigrants, which is 14% than the median after income for all Hamiltonians. And in 2021, about 15%, about 3,000 immigrants, recent immigrants, lived in poverty. And of course, newcomers faced many challenges, including language competency in either of our official languages, level of professional recognized accreditation, discrimination based on work experience, especially many employers looking for Canadian working experience, accent discrimination, overqualification, de-skilling, and access to few of the social or professional networks because they are new to this community. As you can see also in this graphic, that many immigrants, once established in our community, overcome the challenges and improve their financial situation. Looking at racialized groups in Hamilton, as a population group, Hamilton residents belong to racialized groups, and those earned less than non-racialized population. In 2020, the median total income for racialized population aged 15 and over was just over $33,000, 18% than the income of non-racialized population. And in 2020, about 12%, or just under 17,000 racialized people in Hamilton lived in poverty. And so we can see that, again, the varying, we also have data, as you can see, by very different racialized groups in Hamilton as collected through the census. And as a racialized group, Chinese had the highest poverty rate at 20.7%, followed by Arab at 18.5%, and Korean at 16.1%. And the Black population, while it had a poverty rate of 11.5%, it accounted for 20% of racialized people living in poverty. And so you can see that they were the Black group that's living in poverty had the highest number of individuals living in poverty. And while this document uses the term racialized populations of persons, that this data is based on the census data collected using the visible minority term. So if you're looking up this information on Statistics Canada's website, that you'll be looking for visible minority as the term used. And so but we are using the term racialized, and so visible minorities includes those that are non-Caucasian in race or non-white in color, but it does not include Indigenous residents. The next group that we looked at was singles with and without children living in poverty, and as you can see, single individuals without children have a rate of 1 in 5 single individuals without children, or about just near 20,500 in Hamilton are living in poverty. And so these are collected information as unattached individuals, who are persons not living in a census family and either living alone or with roommates, and they are particularly vulnerable to poverty in Hamilton. And the poverty rate of 20.7% is nearly 3 times higher than the rate for the general population of 7.7% that we indicated earlier. And so it highlights the disproportionate poverty burden faced by singles. The high rate also among single individual or unattached individuals underscores the need for targeted support, particularly around affordable housing, employment opportunities, mental health services, income supports, and especially for many single adults in Hamilton living in rental housing or on fixed incomes, meeting basic needs remains a daily challenge. Single parent families are led by persons who separated, divorced, widowed, never married, and then have one or more children living with them. And of course, we know that historically, our data shows that 80% of single parent families are female-led, and the poverty rate for single mother families in Hamilton in 2020 was 13%. And then for single father families, it's just under 12%. And so we see that that's within those families, the 13%, that's just under 8,000 individuals in those single mother families that are living in poverty. And seniors. So seniors in Hamilton, as seniors retire and age, their income sources change. In 2020, about half of seniors' income came from investment income and private retirement income, such as retirement pensions, RSPs, RIFs, as they are older, over 70. About 30% came from government transfers, such as Canada Pension Plan, Old Age Security, and Guaranteed Income Supplement. And 20% came from employment. So even as we have older adults in our community that are choosing to continue to work even past what would be typically a retirement age. In 2020, the majority of seniors received some kind of a government transfer. Hamilton has a poverty rate overall for seniors of 4.2%. And in 2020, about 57% of seniors in Hamilton in poverty were women. And this proportion is just about the same, slightly higher than the provincial average of 56%. And although more women are entering the labor market, they are often paid less than their male counterparts, and disruptions to employment through things like pregnancy, parental leave, elder care can also impact how they progress and promotional opportunities in the workforce. These circumstances then negatively affect their employment income, ability to save, and pension contribution. And this graphic shows the difference between men and women and the poverty rates. And you can see in the 65 to 69 age range that they're actually higher. And you see that men actually are higher than women. But as we age in our community, we can see that the poverty rate for women continues to be significantly higher than for men, right? Especially when we get to the 75 plus, we can see that really that dynamic really change. Children and youth in Hamilton. As of 2020, approximately 4.7% of children under 18 lived in poverty, of Canadian children lived in poverty, while in Hamilton the rate was about 8%. So we have quite a bit of higher rates compared to the national average. And several factors were, again, at play in 2020, as mentioned before, pandemic-related benefits. But we also had the Canada Child Benefit, or CCB, introduced in 2016, provided tax-free monthly payments to eligible families to assist with child-rearing costs. And nationally, the CCB has been instrumental in lifting about 300,000 children out of poverty, contributing to a 40% reduction in child poverty between 2013 and 2017. This graphic shows both the number of children and youth in poverty in Hamilton, as well as the poverty rate. While the poverty rate for children in the 0 to 5 and 6 to 17 is below 10%, we can see that rise to 12.5% for youth aged 18 to 24. And should be noted that at the age of 18, the Canada Child Benefit is no longer available to families. And so while significant strides have been made in reducing child poverty in Canada and Hamilton, ongoing efforts are important and essential to sustain and further this progress. Collaborative initiatives between government programs, community organizations are crucial in ensuring that all children have the opportunity to thrive. And the last bit of data that's included in this report and is about working poor population. And this one is a little bit different than the other data that's been presented to this point. This is a custom data set that offers a unique perspective on poverty. And this uses the low-income measure that I talked about earlier, which is that 50% people living 50% below the median income of families, of individuals right across. And that's set at the national level. And so this is but we thought this was an important population to talk about because this is a unique data set that we get through the work that the partnership that we have with the Community Data Program. And so this is based on tax filer data. This focuses on working poor and uses the low, as I said, the low-income measure after tax. And according to Stats Canada, just in terms of definition of working poor, are individuals with an after-tax income below the low-income measure for a one-person household and earning an annual individual working income of less than $3,000. This income threshold of $3,000 reflects the federal government's working income tax benefit, which is a refundable tax credit intended to provide tax relief to eligible working low-income individuals and families who are already in the workforce, and to encourage other Canadians to enter the workforce. Now, these individuals are more likely to experience unstable employment, irregular work hours, limited access to benefits, and increased health issues. And in 2022, the most recent data that we have available, a working poor individual earning over $3,000, but below, but less than the $28,863, which is the low-income measure for a single person. And so, as you can see, we can see the effect of the income supports that were available in 2020 and into 2021, where we saw a decrease in the poverty rate in terms of working poor population between the ages of 18 and 64 in Hamilton. But in 2022, it had risen to a level that was comparable to the pre-pandemic time period. But you can see that in terms of numbers, and we're now looking at numbers that are quite a bit higher than what we were experiencing prior to the pandemic. And looks like the last bit of the number is cut off on the graphics on the right, but it's in 2022 there were about 17,250 working poor individuals in Hamilton, which is again 4.9% of the population between 18 and 64. And so we are now seeing, while the poverty rate is similar to the pre-pandemic, because of growth in our population, we are seeing a larger number of those that are working poor in our community. But it is clear the impact that pandemic income supports had on the number of working poor in Hamilton. And so as we sort of wrap up the information that was included in this report, progress obviously has been made in some areas, but we need to continue to advocate for adequate income supports for those that are experiencing poverty in Hamilton. I think that's clear. And as I've already mentioned, COVID-19 government benefits really did benefit, but benefits many in our community, lowering those poverty rates and reducing income inequality. But what we are starting to see, and somewhat reflected in that working poor example of information, that poverty rates are rising. There's data from both at the national and provincial level from the Canadian Income Survey that is showing that, highlighting the temporary nature of these supports. And we are also looking to look at our tax filer data, our overall tax filer data that we receive on an annual basis. We have until 2022 currently. We will be receiving the 2023 tax filer data set sometime late summer, early fall, at which time we will be able to get a better sense of what is happening in our community around poverty as it relates to, the changes that have happened around income supports. And of course, families with children, particularly single mothers, saw the greatest increases in median after-tax income during this period when there were supports. And so these supports provided, it did improve that financial stability and child well-being. And so we need to continue to work at what can be done to make sure that fewer of our fellow neighbors in Hamilton are living in poverty. And so as I finish up my part of this conversation, I want to kick it back to you and ask some questions. First of all, if what resonated with you, does the information reflect what you are seeing in Hamilton? What is missing? And then maybe talk even about how you might use this information that's contained in this report. And are there other aspects of understanding poverty that are important to you? So I'm going to stop sharing so I can see all your lovely faces, or hear what feedback you might have on our report. So are there any questions, comments?
I would like to say something.
Yes, yes.
My name's Sally Palmer, and I'm the chair of the Hamilton Social Work Action Committee. What we're most concerned about is the low rates of social assistance. The rate for a single adult on ODSP, the Ontario Disability Support Program, is pretty low. It's $1,368 a month. And the worst off are the people who are not considered handicapped, but have many handicaps, such as lack of English and low education, etc. And they get only $744 a month. And they've been getting the same amount since the Progressive Conservatives took over in 2018. It's really very unfair. And with the increase, the inflation to things like food and rent, which has just been astronomical, a lot of them are out living on the streets or in tent encampments. And now the Ontario government's trying to take that away from them, saying that they will be considered against the law and they could have police intervention. So we're really concerned about that.
Yes, and as you would have seen in one of the first graphics I showed, where it showed the different rates in terms of both on the various social assistance as well as compared to our the different poverty measures, how much lower anyone on any form of social assistance is experiencing in our community and continues to experience. I think the only I saw that this morning the Ontario government said that they will not be clawing back the new disability benefits at the from the federal government. So that for those that are on ODSP, that's a bit of a slight boost, but it's still nowhere near what people really need to live in our community.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Caitlin, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, yes, thank you. Apologies, I don't have my camera right now. Thanks for the really great presentation and lots of information. I think, so I am the executive director at the Hamilton Center for Civic Inclusion. And we do a lot of programming with young people, and our age range is 13 to 25. And I just look at that breakdown of sort of what happens to poverty rates as soon as you turn 18. I think that is like a really important finding and important thing to highlight about what's happening to young people, and the benefit that the child benefit had, and then also the sort of the drop off and the impact for young people. But my question was actually to go back to the information you had about the working poor data.
Yes.
And I just want to know, like, whether you think or whether there's a way to break down or what's going on in that data or how to read it for 2020 and 2021, whether it's showing that the supports that came in through COVID moved people out of the poverty threshold or above the poverty threshold, or whether people with low income jobs were laid off during that period and did not get classified as working poor during that period. So I'm just wondering if there's like, if there's any distinction there, or if there's like, yeah, any way to read the data that tells you which of those cases it might be, or combination of the two.
That's a very good question. I'll have to look more closely at the data. I don't know if I can, because the data is just providing us with the numbers and not necessarily the reasons why. I think the obvious reason is the income supports that were provided during COVID would definitely had a significant impact. But I don't believe the data that we have currently, the way it is provided to us, has that distinction whether they were, whether we saw that drop off of just people outside of the workforce, and so they're obviously not being counted in that. But I think it would probably be a double effect, but definitely that the impact of the COVID income supports, I think, were a major factor, and you really see that as in that graphic as we come out of that time period. Even in 2021, it was already, the poverty rate was starting to rise slightly, because most of those supports happened in 2020 with, some lingering into 2021. But then by 2022, we're already almost right back where we were as a percentage. And as I said, the numbers are even higher because of our growing population. So I think that's really obviously a concern. And for those that may have left the workforce, been unemployed, they wouldn't be captured because this is about working poor, those that are actually still working. But great question. Thank you for that, Caitlin. Any other questions, comments? How do you see yourself using this information? Is it useful in terms of the work that you're involved in community, or with other community groups that you are engaging with? And then I think maybe along those lines, and maybe as a slight follow-up to Caitlin's question is, how can we improve the kind of information that we present? Obviously, there are some gaps that we might not be able to answer all the questions or the different aspects that people might be interested in, but we're always open to hearing what are people looking for that we may be able to pursue in some of our future work. This is a quiet group. Sally, you have your hand up. Oh, you're mute. You're still muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'd like to take this opportunity to mention what our main task has been with this Hamilton Social Work Action Committee, we started a petition campaign to raise social assistance rates in 2022. And we've been able to collect enough signatures that the MPPs who are sympathetic have read out the petition on 569 times in the legislature. And altogether, we've collected personal signatures where we actually see the person when they're writing it down, over 7,000 signatures. And we have been sending, the petitions go automatically to the Minister for Community and Social Services, Michael Parsa, who is definitely not going to increase Ontario Works. He thinks it's supposed to be short term, but we found out in Hamilton, 23% of the people who are receiving OW have been on it for 5 years or more. So we're using this information to try and put pressure to get them to raise those rates. But even the rates of for the people who are on disability are way too low.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Laura, I see you have your hand up.
I do, and I'm sorry for being late. I had a bit of a technical issue getting
Not a
here.
problem, not a problem. Great to see you.
Good to see you too. Just not really a question, but I tend to use median numbers as opposed to averages to be able to say, 50% of people in Hamilton earn, especially singles, earn
Right.
less than X, which would be, whatever percentage of
Right.
MBM at that point, like how it sort of works out. Is that easy to look up in the community? Like getting Hamilton specific stats, I always find really difficult. So
Yeah. So say that again. You're looking for.
instead of average incomes, looking at median incomes
Yes,
instead.
absolutely. Yes, yes. We have that information as well.
Perfect. I might bug you at some point.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
the part two to this, I love how disaggregated the data is on this. Like kudos, because it's hard to get these answers out there. And around the employment part, I know we're working with Toronto Metropolitan University, and hopefully in the next few months we'll come out with the new employment standards, the new employment services that's out there and how successful it's being just from the client perspective. And
Right.
Sally's
Yes.
question around OW and how easy is it to get off of there. And I think it'll complement it nicely. It tells a story that probably the province doesn't want to see. So I'll
Yes,
stop chatting.
yeah, no, because there has been quite the transformation in employment services in the province over the last number of years. And so, yeah, having some good analysis of how that has been transformed and the impact it has on those looking for employment income, because that obviously, especially that last graphic that I showed around working poor individuals, it'd be interesting to see how that has been impacted by these changes. It's hard to put it down to one thing all the time, because the data doesn't always give us the information as to what is happening in a person's life. But I think that's something to be keeping an eye on. Kim.
Thanks, Ted, and thanks for the presentation. I have a comment, and then I'll also just read something from the chat. And I just wanted to respond to Sally's comment in terms of the OW rates and sort of this argument that we keep hearing that people are only on this temporarily, and that this is they don't need enough to live on because they're only there temporarily. And I think that also is the message that as advocates we need to push against. Because even if someone is on OW, doesn't matter if they're on OW for a month or 5 months or 2 years or whatever the case may be, what they're getting is not enough. And I think, that's one of the great pieces that you have done, Sally, over the years, is to keep coming back and to keep that advocacy fresh in the minds of MPPs of our province, to say this still isn't enough. That's not a reason why we shouldn't be increasing it, because you think they're only going to be on it for a short amount of time. So kudos to you and all the work that you have done. I just wanted to give you that shout out. We very much appreciate at SPRC everything that you and the Social Work Action Committee have been doing. And secondly, I just wanted to say there's a comment from Jean Samuel, who I know needs to drop off the call, but just stating that she's just always very happy to have the data to support the work and to support organizations to deepen those efforts to provide services and programs for marginalized populations. And one of the questions that she posed was, what is one thing you think that social service organizations should be thinking of given this new data on poverty in Hamilton?
Ooh, wow. One thing. How do you wrap it up into one thing? That's a challenging question. I think that we have many populations in our community that are, I mean, as you saw from that first graphic, the groups that we highlighted today are far deeper in poverty than the average, the 7.7%. So I think I think using this information for social service organizations, because they work with different population groups, use the one that's it speaks to the population groups that you're supporting, and then talk to, I think, politicians at all levels. I think from the councillors in our city to our MPs and MPPs, because I think this is not just a single level of government response that we require. It's all of our politicians need to be addressing this situation these situations in our communities. Will you be presenting? Oh.
Maybe the other thing too is, in terms of social service organizations, is just having this information to integrate it into the work that we do every day. Mm-hmm. So regardless of what sphere of social service we are working in, poverty is a systemic issue. And so if, when we're talking about things like homelessness and encampments, we're talking about poverty. We're talking about people that don't have the, basic necessities in terms of what they need in terms of those financial resources. So a lot of the issues that we're dealing with come down to people not having the financial resources they need. And so as organizations, what can we do? And I know there's some people on this call that are maybe working with organizations, or they're on the board of an organization. How do we keep these issues fresh? How do we advocate collectively and recognize our collective influence and power within the community? And how do we bring people together? And that's part of the reason why we have these conversations and want to have more of these conversations in community, is to work with all of you to help to really continue to address these issues so that we can affect some change.
Hey, I'm not seeing any. I did see the question, Laura, that you presented. Or will we be presenting this to council? That isn't currently on our slate. We would have to look at committee agendas and see if there's a place where that might fit in. But thanks for that support in doing that, because I think, yes, bringing this information to council as they deliberate various pieces that are would inform them on the challenge of poverty in, and particularly by various groups in our community. I think that looking for those opportunities to do that, I think we will take that under advisement. Thank you for that. All right. And yes, Sally, absolutely. And Sally, if you could provide a link to the petition to raise the rates, just for those that might not have that link, if you have that handy, that'd be absolutely great. And I know that I think we also have a small evaluation that we'd like to for you to fill out. I'm still open to some questions if there are others, but I want to make sure we get that. I'm not sure if one of my colleagues will be pasting that into the chat for you to fill out. Yeah, there it is. It's just a quick survey. It'll only take you 2 or 3 minutes, just some feedback on today's session, so that we have some information, and of course always looking to continue these kinds of conversations with our community as we provide data through these kinds of reports. Always wanting to look to engage and to hear from our community as to how people are using the data, and the importance of it in our community. Are there any further comments, questions?
I would like to add, I'm writing a chat to give people my email address. I don't have an easy way of sending it otherwise, but if people write to me, I will send them the petition and also make some suggestions about how they can get more than just their own signature. And
sure. Okay, that's perfect. Excellent.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that. So I think at this point, seeing no more questions or comments, well, thank you for joining us over your lunch hour. We'll finish a little bit early, give you a little bit of time back over your lunch hour. And thank you for joining us. As you can also, if you haven't looked at our full report, you can see it on our website, sprchamilton.ca. And please check that out. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.